Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Hope the day's been going well. It is about 9 in the morning here on the East Coast of the U.S., and we're coming off the turkey hangover from Thanksgiving. If anybody out there was celebrating Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving. And yeah, we are super excited to talk about CloudStack today. I'm Aaron Wagner. I'm the CEO and one of the founders of American Cloud, and Nathan Gleason, another founder and CTO of American Cloud, is joining me today. And we love CloudStack. We have been CloudStack users for about half a decade now, and this year felt like a really good year to talk about why we have confidence in CloudStack and how we came to the decision of using CloudStack originally, and some of the things that we've learned along the way. And really, there's a huge there's a huge infrastructure landscape out there right now, and we're really going to focus today's talk on the open source infrastructure as a service landscape. But this slide could have been full of thousands of different projects, from the CNCF certified and graduated projects. There's some proprietary software out there that's available. And obviously, there's all the closed source clouds and infrastructure platforms that are available. But if you're here at the CloudStack conference, we figure you're probably along the same lines as us, and we're looking at open source projects and open source frameworks that you could leverage. And so, what I want to do, kind of make an analogy for these top infrastructure projects, where if these were the top five, and if they were represented at kids you might find in high school, you've got OpenStack, which is kind of that cocky kid. He was on every sports team. He had a leather jacket. He thinks he's really cool. He thinks he's got a lot of friends, but people aren't extremely confident in him. You've got Open Nebula, which is the new kid on the block. He's cool. He wears sunglasses inside. You've got Canonical Maz and Foreman, which are reliable guys, but they kind of hang around in smaller circles. They really only do one activity. And then you've got CloudStack. CloudStack is that reliable guy. Everybody considers CloudStack their best friend. They never let you down. You call him when you're in trouble. You call him when you're happy, and he's always there. And these are, kind of a joke to make that analogy, but in all reality, that is kind of how I and we view these projects. And these are really the top five as we see it when it comes to open source infrastructure as a service. And when we were really looking at the landscape, we had to consider several different factors. So I'm going to pass it off to Nate here to kind of talk about the technical bits of considering a framework, and then I'll kind of transition back into the business side.
Sure, thanks, Aaron. So as you can see, there's many things to look at. And of course, this isn't an all-inclusive list, but of course, how many steps is there in the initial deployment? How long is it going to take, the initial deployment? What other factors, you need to look at? How easy is it to scale out? Looking down the road, what's going to be the input, to get this thing to scale out? And also having, proof of the scaling, right? Finding evidence, case studies that show the software can scale. Is the product, if it's really good if the product is built around scaling to start off with. So that's something to always look for. And of course, is there automation out there with infrastructure as a cloud? Is there Ansible playbooks? Is there Puppet, manifest? Is there things that are already out there that people have already done that you can quickly and easily manage and automate the framework? And also, of course, the different components. How many need to be managed and monitored? How do you monitor and how do you manage those, monitored components? And of course, looking for, the general things, APIs is a really huge factor these days. Of course, I've already mentioned the IAC tools. Does it have a nice, what do the login screens look like? Is it confusing? Is it easy to use? Is it, can you move through the UI and the UX fluently? And also, of course, multi-tenant, depending on what you're going for, you definitely might either, you can use multi-tenant as different departments in your business or just different customers. And also, look at the feature set. What is the initial feature set? Does the feature set, match up to the needs of the business? And my big one is the ease of onboarding your support. So the architect or the engineer, eventually is going to need to move away from the initial install and the initial scaling. Is it easy to bring in the lower level engineers and your support personnel to actually, support and maintain the product or the system that you're going to select?
Yeah, and all of these bullet points, from the business's perspective, they all require a different number of engineers and experience, and so it's really important to from the project's core to know, one, is this project widely adopted? Is there a large community around it? Are there lots of different tutorials around how to deploy it, manage it, monitor it, deploy it, extend it? Um, and if so, how big of a team are you going to need to be able to deploy, manage, and continue to develop on it? And so, all of these, reading between the lines on all of these is, is it an easy to understand application? Is the software digestible enough and contained enough to really scale out? Or is it going to require tens or dozens or hundreds of engineers for your business in order to really get the project to scale depending on your needs? And so, on that side of the equation, when you're considering a framework, at least for us, it was really important for us to have a framework that was not only feature rich and extendable, but also extremely easy to digest, so that we can have that diverse range of engineering talent where we don't need to hire an engineer with 20 years of experience every time, and we can really have, a more traditional hierarchy where we have seniors, mids, and junior engineers who are all able to contribute to the management and deployment of our infrastructure model. So I think it's important. It's really important, if as everybody here is a business, to consider this when they're thinking about infrastructure as a service and when they're thinking about software. Is even once you get to deploy, what does N+1 look like? And if it looks like it's going to cost more to maintain it, then if the juice isn't worth the squeeze, then you may want to consider something else. And this is really what drove us to CloudStack initially many years ago. And on that note, it's all of those reasons are reasons why we didn't go with the cool kid or the cocky kid. Open Nebula it's a younger project, and it's limited unless you choose their enterprise support. And I kind of have that likeness to some of the Red Hat, like enterprise Linux, and obviously OpenStack and their contributions there. But without signing up for Open Nebula's enterprise program, the project is actually pretty limited in its core. And more to me, Open Nebula felt like a freemium model. And that for us was not something we were looking for. We were looking for a strong open source community, something that we could contribute back to. and something that we could participate in advancing, the infrastructure as a service model. And OpenNebula is cool, and there's some cool new stuff, and sometimes the UI, it's hard not to get the blanket pulled over your eyes with a cool new UI. At least for me, I like stuff that looks good in the browser. But at the end of the day, it was more important to not get funneled into that type of model for our business. But it is worth mentioning that something OpenNebula is doing well and is interesting, and something that the CloudStack community could think about in the future is creating a more multi-cloud native plugin landscape. I mean, we already do have the AWS compatible API capabilities, but there are some nice out-of-the-box multi-cloud features that OpenNebula does provide. And then OpenStack, I feel like I could have an entire talk around why OpenStack is not a good decision generally for people to choose as a framework. They're the 1,000-pound gorilla in the room. They get most of the media around open source infrastructure. And that's mostly, in my opinion, because the contributors to the OpenStack project are very large. You have Red Hat, you have Rackspace, you have several others. But without signing up, again, for these enterprise support packages through these contributors, you're left alone and afraid with a lot of things to manage. It is not easy to digest. It's not easy to manage. It's not easy to scale. It is extremely feature rich. So there's a lot of choices you can make inside the OpenStack ecosystem. But to try to build a general infrastructure model around OpenStack is going to be extremely difficult. It's going to be extremely expensive, whether you hire out internally or you sign up for an enterprise support program through one of the contributors. And in my opinion, and Nate shares this opinion as well, the best use case for OpenStack is if you want to select one of those feature sets. If you want to really drill down into, like Ironic and just do bare metal as a service, it makes OpenStack more digestible, and you can really just focus on one component rather than trying to deploy and manage these hundreds of different components of OpenStack and then try to take that to multiple data centers is extremely difficult. So those are a few of the reasons why, OpenNebula and OpenStack could be good for your business, but ultimately why they weren't good for ours.
And I'll talk about Mass and Foreman a little bit, I guess, less known than what you saw on the other slide. But yeah, Mass was originally developed to live a layer beneath infrastructure as a service, and it really does do a good job providing metal as a service. We actually really do like Mass and use it for certain things. They have here recently, you can see kind of some of the wording change on their websites about trying to push more into like a cloud service type platform. I call it Metal Cloud, right? They have little blurbs and everything on their site for that. But for me, I think it seems more like it's suited for private cloud. I think it would work really well. They don't really have the multi-tenancy built in, something like, like a CloudStack does, or some of the other offerings out there. But like I said, it could probably work pretty well for an edge computing case as well. But anyway, yeah, we do like, and the good thing is that, obviously with all of these products too, something that you definitely want to look for as well is, is there, I know we've kind of like talked down about commercial support a little bit, but without being forced into commercial support, but actually having the support there if you do need it later on down the road is something that's obviously important. So, Canonical obviously provides commercial support for Mass, and it also seems like, after using it for a few years, it also seems, like some of these other companies, it's almost like they're kind of trying to push you into getting a support contract so you can really unlock the features that these products can do. And Mask kind of feels like that. It works well for what it does. If you want to extend it or really use it as like a cloud platform or something, it seems like you pretty much have to go with some sort of support contract to unlock it, as it were. And moving on to Foreman. Foreman's not necessarily, I guess it's more of an orchestration platform for Metal and VM lifecycles. It can deploy and provision to a cloud. And the case could be made that, you could use it as a backend cloud platform or, an infrastructure as a service platform. It would take a lot of work, but I think the main pieces are there. And I feel like it's aimed more at like the admin class of users. If Foreman is really a lot of the user base you're going to see out there is actually administrators managing like large fleets of services or VMs. And Foreman is tightly coupled with config management, which is one of the reasons that we actually like Foreman as well. It's tightly coupled with config management. Just about all of the major players are represented inside of Foreman. So it's still a little buggy in some of the important areas that we found. It seems like it used to be really popular a while ago, and the popularity kind of dropped off, but it seems like it's got a pretty stable base and a pretty stable core of users. And it's a great platform for certain things, but again, kind of why we passed up, just like I said, some of the main core features seemed a little bit buggy and not totally complete.
Nate, you want to kick this one off?
Sure. So as you see here, a clear winner for us for all around infrastructure as a service is CloudStack. The core of the infrastructure is all represented, and there's tooling built around it to make it easy to use and, as Aaron had mentioned, to digest. It is easier to deploy. It's a lot easier to manage and use. And also, it's also how fast can you get it up and going. That was something that we really like about CloudStack is it's very easy to get up and going with CloudStack. And then, of course, some of the configurations and everything that come later on, um, pretty easy to digest, and feature rich. There's some of the main things that are already there: compute, the networking being solid, storage, multi-tenancy, having Kubernetes built in is a nice feature. And we love the plugins too, right? That you can support some of the major storage, open source storage, and networking out there. So that's good. I'd say room for improvement. Everything has room for improvement. I think the error messages in CloudStack is one. As somebody who uses it and looks at it every day, the dreaded no destination found for deployment, that generic message, why did it not deploy, would be a good thing for error messages. And of course, some of the documentation, there's some features in CloudStack that aren't totally documented all the way, but you have to kind of dig through some pulls and everything and try to figure out, where this feature went and how to use it and things like that. But do you have anything to add to this, Aaron?
Yeah, absolutely. CloudStack for us, and like I was kind of joking about earlier with reliability and the reliable friend, is CloudStack has proven time in and time out that once you have it deployed properly and set up properly, CloudStack will just work. It really does. Like 99.99% of the time, it is going to work. Like we were talking about there's obviously areas for improvement. And sometimes like the no destination found error message isn't necessarily always the best clue. Usually it's like the CPU speed is setting incorrectly or whatever. But once everything is set up and running, CloudStack has been extremely reliable, and it continues to work. And there's really, for us, there's really been no looking back in that regard. For general purpose, all around infrastructure as a service, CloudStack is not trying to be anything that it isn't. It is the reliable infrastructure as a service platform, software project, and it's great at that. And the community around CloudStack is great. We have a very active base inside of GitHub. I know I've put out, probably a dozen issues, and we've helped work on some of the functionality as well with multi-queue networking. And to have an active community around CloudStack actively building, and there's been a lot of exciting presentations the past couple of days around what's coming next with 419 and what's in the works now. And so to see how this community has continued to grow and build and develop over the years, while still sticking to the true purpose of being an infrastructure framework rather than everything else, is a major reason why CloudStack continues to be the clear winner. And in our theory and our estimation, will continue to be the clear winner in the coming years and decades that follow. That's pretty much all I've got, Nate. If you've got anything else here.
Sure. Another thing, a good bullet point is, consistently releasing new features is something that's important too. And not only some other projects seem to, be really, just kind of mired down and working on bugs, or, really releasing small features, or, but CloudStack definitely, the community really coalesces around releasing good, needed new features on a consistent basis. And that's something I really like as well.
Awesome. And just to kind of pull it all together and talk a little bit more about American Cloud and, how we have used CloudStack and built a product really around it. And I know we're not the only cloud provider out there that uses CloudStack under the hood of our product set. But I'll just kind of touch on this because we really didn't want this to be an American Cloud commercial at all. We wanted to talk about CloudStack, but we're a cloud provider. Our pitch is that we provide cloud without any politics. Everybody with legal speech and legal ideas deserves a place on the internet, regardless of if we agree or disagree with them. Under the hood, so we have like a service delivery app. Shout out to Stack Council. We worked with them to get that deployed and built, and we've customized since then. But they're a great partner, and if you've talked to them, continue to talk to them. Shout out. And underneath that service delivery app, we're using CloudStack, Ceph, Linbit, Canonical MAS, and some others, but those are the major orchestrators and storage components. We have a CNCF certified Kubernetes platform. We don't charge network egress fees. We own a 72,000 square foot data center in Silicon Valley with 10 megawatts of power, and we own over 1 million IPv4 addresses. And CloudStack is really the core of what we built a product around because we love it so much. And, it isn't trying to be everything, which is why we pulled in the other projects to kind of create this, what I call the orchestrators under the hood. And then the service delivery app on top allows customers, basically an API gateway, to allow customers to interact with the different features that these orchestrators provide, CloudStack being the main project in that stack. I want to roll straight into some Q&A for anybody that's watching virtually or live in Paris. By the way, I'm jealous. I was just in Paris a couple months ago. I miss the pastries.
Right. Do we have any questions from the audience? Right. Oh, I think we have one. Yeah. Can you give me more information about your environment, like CloudStack versions and number of zones deployed and types and stuff like that?
Yeah, we're a KVM-based CloudStack deployment. We have 2 zones deployed. Nate, you want to give any other particulars?
Sure. We're running on 4.18.1 right now. We just actually upgraded, I think, about like 9 weeks ago, something like that. We also deploy, obviously, we have a pretty good sized test and development system that kind of mirrors everything in production. And yeah, so we try to stay versioning wise, I think we try to stay probably, I'd say, what, six months or so after a major new release comes out, when we kind of aim to upgrade that.
Yeah, and I should have said 2 zones, and one of our zones has multiple clusters inside of it. Yeah.
Cool. Just let me double check if any questions. Yeah, we have one more. Was it difficult to educate your customers how to use CloudStack Console and CloudStack at all?
It's interesting for us because, like we were talking about with our partnership with Stack Council and that service delivery application, our customers don't interact directly with CloudStack. We actually built our own customer-facing API and our own portal. So from the CloudStack side, that's really all internal to our organization.
Oh, I see. Thank you. And another one. How do you guys not charge egress fees? Are your fees bundled into the VM instances?
Our secret sauce is the fact that we own everything. We
Right.
don't have a landlord because we own our own building, we own our own infrastructure, and we've built out all the networking inside of our building, and we have a blend of a couple dozen tier 1 telcos inside the building. And so it's a fixed cost for us. We do charge like a flat fee for VPC networks to our customers. We include one isolated network for anybody that signs up. But it's our belief that the incumbent cloud providers have not been good stewards of data. And one of those things has been nickel and diming on the network and operational fees, when those cost centers for the clouds are really pure revenue, right? Like they're making 90% margin on network fees generally. And that's just not the case for us because we own the infrastructure. So we instead of trying to take advantage of our customers because it's a fixed cost for us, we're able to kind of pass that through and really only charge for the core infrastructure underneath. So if they're consuming, cores, RAM, disk, we can charge for that appropriately, and we're just as good or better than the other tier 2 clouds in the space.
Thank you. And I guess we're just about right on time. So yeah, once more, big round of applause for Aaron and Nathan from American Cloud.